Welcome to The Other Opinion. We're the place that, well, doesn't shy away from those perspectives maybe other shows might ignore.
That's right.
Today, we are diving deep into something pretty huge. It's this massive convergence, really, of Hollywood drama. You've got intense creative loyalty clashing with, like, billions in corporate debt. And it could genuinely decide the future of superhero movies.
Yeah, we're talking about Man of Steel, Zack Snyder's 2013 film versus the new James Gunn Superman coming in 2025. It's a decade-long debate.
But it's way more than just creative differences, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just about, the color of the cape or the tone. This is feeding directly into a high-stakes, multi-billion-dollar corporate battle happening right now at Warner Bros. Discovery.
Right. And this battle could actually potentially bring back the Snyderverse or, kill it off for good.
Exactly. It's that big.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we're pulling from a couple of key areas. We've got the creative side covered, looking closely at aesthetic critiques, especially Nicholas Ayala's piece, 7 Things Man of Steel Did Better Than Superman.
Yep, that gives us the fan perspective, the why it still resonates angle. And then on the other side, we've got detailed industry analysis. This covers the huge financial stuff around WBD.
The debt, the Skydance bid, Netflix jumping in. That's complicated.
Very. So our mission here is really to pull out the crucial bits for you. What did Man of Steel actually do creatively that keeps this dedicated fan base so fired up?
And maybe more importantly right now, why is this corporate chaos, the debt, the bidding war, why is this the most critical moment for DC's future since that whole original Snyder Cut movement blew up?
It really is this ultimate collision, isn't it? Where, artistic vision smacks right into pure corporate necessity.
Okay, let's unpack the art first. Because, you can't really get why the corporate side values this fan base unless you understand the loyalty.
Exactly.
So if we accept that Gunn's Superman for 2025 is going for that traditional, bright, maybe more universally friendly tone.
Yeah, the classic Superman feel.
Then Man of Steel back in 2013, it offered something really different. Darker, heavier, almost mythological.
Yes, definitely more serious. And that difference, according to the source material, is exactly why it still has such intense loyalty. So we're going to dive into these 7 key arguments Ayala makes for why some people still see Myers as superior.
It really boils down to that core conflict in superhero movies today, doesn't it? Like, how much grit and realism do you want for a guy who can literally fly?
Precisely. Our sources kind of frame Maz as maybe the Elseworlds take, grounded, focused on the burden, the consequences, while Gunn seems to be going back to basics, more like an idealized comic run, maybe like All-Star Superman.
Okay, let's start at the absolute beginning. Krypton. Specifically, the parents.
Right. Point 1, the Kryptonian parents.
In Man of Steel, you've got Russell Crowe's Jor-El and Islet Zur as Lara. And the film shows them acting with just, total selflessness.
It wasn't just, oh no, the planet's exploding, let's save the baby. They were actively fighting the system, fighting Zod's rigid thinking, all to make sure Kal-El had free will. They truly believed he was Earth's salvation.
That's a key detail, isn't it? It sets up his whole purpose immediately.
It really does, because it establishes his ethical mandate right from the start. That whole sequence with Jor-El's AI giving Clark the mission later on.
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards.
Exactly. In time, you will help them accomplish wonders. That frames him as this almost divinely appointed savior figure. It aligns perfectly with the classic hero archetype, and it gives Kebble's more solemn portrayal real weight from the get-go.
Okay, now contrast that with what the sources are saying about Superman 2025. There's this controversial twist hinted at.
Yeah, the idea that maybe the Kryptonian parents sent Kal-El to Earth as a potential conqueror, or at least with the capacity to conquer.
Which apparently draws from some darker comic storylines, maybe like Flashpoint Beyond, where Kryptonian motives aren't always purely heroic.
Right. And look, the source material acknowledges both are valid ways to reinterpret the mythos. Challenging the origin can keep things fresh, absolutely.
But the critique seems to be that Maz didn't muddy the waters in the first film. It kept the heroic mandate clean.
Exactly. It stayed closer to the standard origin, the savior burdened by his destiny. And that allowed the focus to stay squarely on Clark's internal struggle, his journey to accepting the suit. For that loyal fan base, that clean, classic heroic foundation was preferred. It made his later choices feel earned.
And that foundation connects right into the second point. The opening scene and the context of Krypton itself.
Oh, yeah. Man of Steel's opening on Krypton was
massive.
It felt like its own sci-fi disaster movie, didn't it?
Totally. We spent real time there. It was visually breathtaking, sure, but it also focused on Jor-El's desperate moves, the Council's failure, and crucially, Zod's turn to, well, what he saw as necessary action.
And that context is vital for understanding Superman's first major challenge later. The source really emphasizes the tragedy of it all. Nobody really won on Krypton. Jor-El lost everything, Zod got the Phantom Zone, the Council died.
By showing Krypton as this advanced but kind of broken society, politically, emotionally rigid morass, gave the destruction real emotional weight.
And it made Zod more complex, right? Not just a power-hungry maniac, but a product of this flawed system he was genetically programmed to defend, almost sympathetic in his rigidity.
So compare that to the reports on Superman 2025. Because it's establishing an already active hero, the backstory gets summarized, right? Like maybe text on screen, quick flashbacks.
That seems to be the approach, which is fine for an established hero, normally. But if you pair that lack of screen time with that potential conqueror twist we mentioned...
then Krypton risks feeling a bit detached, less emotionally connected to Clark's journey on Earth.
Potentially, yeah. If the film assumes the audience knows the basics, it might sacrifice that immediate, intense gravity of seeing the world end, you know? The why behind Superman's existence feels less immediate.
Which leads us directly into the third point, script tightness and the emotional arc.
Right. Most was structured very deliberately as a self-contained origin. Its main focus was exploring Henry Cavill's Superman, his fears, his doubts.
Especially the burden from Jonathan Kent's warnings. Kevin Costner's character, that whole maybe you should have let them die thing, heavy stuff.
Super heavy. And that's why the sources describe most as having a complete emotional arc. We see him grapple with that fear and uncertainty throughout the film.
And that introspection is key, because it really sets up why he's so serious, so solemn later on in, like, Batman v Superman. It wasn't random, it was earned emotional weight.
It established this deep internal conflict. How do I save a world that might actually fear or reject me? It's complex psychology for a superhero film.
Someone in the comments called Must the Batman Begins answer for Superman. And that really kind of nails the tone, doesn't it? That serious, grounded reboot focused on the psychological stress.
It really does. Now, Gunn's Superman, while it's meant to be accessible, the critique suggests it works better if you kind of already know your DC stuff.
Because it's throwing a lot at you at once.
Seems like it. Lex Luthor, the Daily Planet crew, maybe other heroes hinted at. Lots of moving gears from the start. It's designed to launch a whole universe immediately.
Whereas most felt like it earned its sequels. It focused on Clark first.
That's the argument. The new Superman has the job of setting up the DCEU from day one, which you can argue inherently dilutes the focus on Superman's singular emotional journey in this specific film.
It's a fundamental difference in how you tell the story. And that brings us right to maybe the most debated aspect, the visuals and the whole realism thing.
Yes. The collateral damage debate.
Before we dive into that minefield, just a quick reminder. You're listening to The Other Opinion. If you're enjoying this breakdown, if it's sparking some thoughts, please do us a huge favor.
Yeah, hit that like button, drop your own other opinions in the comments. Seriously, we read them all, and definitely subscribe to the channel.
And hey, share it with a friend, especially that one friend who has very strong feelings about Snyder versus Gunn. Help us spread the word.
Okay, back to the visual battlefield. Point 4. The realistic depiction of battles. Man of Steel took a notoriously unflinching look at what happens when gods fight in a city.
Yeah, it was destructive. It really forced you to think, okay, if beings moving at Mach speeds are hitting each other over Metropolis, what does that actually look like?
This is where the fan base really split, wasn't it? Ma showed the immense physical consequences. Superman, in that film, had to prioritize stopping Zod and the World Engine, the existential threat, before he could focus on individual rescues.
Which led directly to the Black Zero event, Metropolis getting absolutely wrecked. It was controversial, to say the least.
But the sources argue that was intentional. The DCE wanted to show a world-changing event that couldn't just be ignored in the next movie. Black Zero was meant to be a trauma, the thing that fuels Batman's rage in BVS. The realism was supposed to be uncomfortable.
So that's the big philosophical question for fans today, right? If you aim for realism, does the hero have to deal with real consequences? Or should he stay this perfect ideal who magically avoids all the mess?
Ma's fans clearly wanted that more adult, consequence-heavy version. They felt it treated the character and the audience with more maturity.
Whereas Superman 2025 seems to be explicitly rejecting that. David Corenswed's Superman is highlighted for actively minimizing damage.
Yeah, that anecdote from the source, him saving a squirrel during a fight with a giant monster, it perfectly sums up the shift. It's back to traditional heroics, save the little guy during the chaos. The new DCEU is consciously shedding that baggage of consequence.
Okay, from ground-level destruction up to the sky. Point 5. The flying sequences.
Oh, the flying it wasn't just travel. It was a spectacle. Visually, audibly, it felt demanding.
Every takeoff, especially early on, had that sonic boom, the ground cracking, the camera shake. You felt the sheer power involved, even after he mastered it. There was still that intensity.
Snyder used specific visual language. The cracked pavement, the dust kicking up, even the look of effort on Cavill's face sometimes to sell the idea that this was immense power barely contained, not just effortless soaring. The source calls the effects groundbreaking for their time, and that physical intensity was a huge part of the film's unique feel.
Now, in the new Superman, the flying is apparently still spectacular visually.
But it takes more of a narrative backseat. It's treated as a known ability, something he already has. So the focus shifts more to how he uses it in fights, interactions with others, creative moves.
The sense of wonder, since it's not an origin anymore, is maybe less central to the experience. It's something Clark and maybe the audience is expected to be used to.
Which flows perfectly into the sixth point, the music. Hans Zimmer versus John Williams.
This was a big deal at the time. Zimmer deliberately avoided quoting the classic Williams theme. That was radical.
Hugely radical. He wanted a completely new musical identity, something that reflected the specific Superman's journey, uncertain, mythic, gradual, rather than the triumphant fanfare of the already established hero we knew from Christopher Reeve.
The source calls the Moss score an emotional companion to the film, not just background noise. Tracks like Flight or the really heavy driving themes for Zod. They carry so much of the film's weight.
Zimmer built it from the ground up. And the source argues the score is so complete it kind of stands alone as its own piece of art. You can listen to it and feel the movie's whole emotional journey without seeing anything.
That rejection of nostalgia was pretty vital for carving out Moss's unique identity, wasn't it? It helped sell the seriousness, the idea that this was a fresh start.
It let the music fully express those themes of isolation, wonder, the sadness of Krypton's end, all of it.
Now contrast that with Superman 2025. The decision there was to intentionally bring back the Williams theme, remix it, build on it.
Right, which obviously taps into decades of love and nostalgia. It's instantly recognizable, comforting even.
But the critique is that it limits the new movie's ability to forge its own identity. It anchors it musically to a past era. It chooses familiarity over originality, perhaps.
It's a different strategy, aiming for connection through legacy rather than distinction through novelty.
Okay, finally, point 7, and this is a big one. The villain, Michael Shannon's General Zod.
Oh, absolutely. Shannon Zod is often put up there with the greats like Ledger's Joker or Hiddleston's Loki, and for good reason. He brought this visible anguish, this desperation to the role.
What made him so compelling in Man of Steel wasn't just that he was powerful. It was his motivation, or rather, his lack of free motivation.
Exactly. He wasn't driven by personal ambition in the usual sense. He was genetically engineered, literally bred to be Krypton's military protector. His entire being was defined by this rigid duty to his people, his lost world.
That complexity is central to the defense of Superman's controversial choice at the end of the film having to kill Zod.
Yes. The argument is that Superman realized Zod was trapped by his own programming. He couldn't stop trying to rebuild Krypton, even if it meant wiping out humanity. His purpose was destruction from Earth's perspective. No peaceful outcome was possible.
To make a world-ending threat also feel tragic, personally tormented?
Yeah.
That's incredibly difficult, and Shannon nailed it.
It makes him feel like a genuinely scarier and maybe deeper threat than how Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor is presented in the source material for Superman 2025. Lex is framed as the brilliant, manipulative human who thinks the world doesn't need Superman. Classic conflict.
But Zod's motivations were tied to the entire plot's genesis, Krypton's fall, Superman's very existence. It forced Superman into an impossible choice that would inevitably shape him moving forward.
So if you bring all 7 points together, the parents, Krypton's portrayal, the emotional arc, the realistic battles, the flight physics, the score, Zod's depth, you see this consistent vision.
A vision that emphasizes weight, consequence, realism, and a sort of tragic grandeur.
Exactly, and that commitment to that specific vision is why the Snyderverse fan base is so incredibly loyal. They found the mature, maybe even adult superhero story they were looking for.
And that loyalty isn't just, noise on the internet. It's become a tangible, quantifiable market force.
Which is the perfect bridge, because this whole artistic debate, this fan loyalty, it's now crashing headlong into the world of high finance and corporate takeovers.
Right. The fate of both these visions, Snyder's darker Ma West legacy and Gunn's brighter Superman future, it now genuinely rests on this massive, incredibly complex merger situation unfolding at Warner Bros. Discovery.
Okay, let's get into the corporate weeds, because this is where it gets wild. The stakes are astronomical. WBD as a company is valued at over $40 billion. That's huge.
But here's the kicker. They're carrying roughly $35.6 billion in debt. That is a lot of debt for a $40 billion company.
It's an enormous amount. And while CEO David Zaslav has made progress cutting it down since the big Discovery merger in 2022, it's still this massive weight dragging the company down. It's spooking the markets.
That debt-to-value ratio is the scary part. And the sources point to S&P Global Ratings downgrading WBD's debt back in May 2025. That's a serious red flag in the financial world.
A big one. A downgrade basically means the rating agency sees WBD's debt as riskier, which makes it harder and more expensive for them to borrow money. And the S&P report specifically said they expect these leverage issues, the debt problems, to continue until at least 2027.
Okay, so that 2027 deadline is like a ticking clock.
Mm-hmm.
Zaslav needs cash or a solution fast.
Exactly. That pressure explains his whole strategy shift. He's basically trying to engineer a bidding war because he thinks the company's assets, HBO, Warner Bros., Pictures, DC Studios, are undervalued because everyone's focused on the debt.
His original plan was to split the company, right, by April 2026.
Yeah, the idea was to separate the, let's say, declining parts, the traditional cable networks like CNN, TNT, Discovery Channel, which are losing subscribers, from the growth parts, HBO Max or just Max now, the movie studio, DC.
Hoping investors would value this sexy streaming and studio stuff higher on its own.
Right. But here's the crucial thing the sources highlight. Planning to split the company like that, it makes you vulnerable. It basically puts a for sale sign on the best parts.
And creates an opening for someone aggressive to just swoop in and buy the whole thing before the split happens, to stop competitors from just cherry-picking HBO and DC.
Bingo. And that brings us to the clear frontrunner in this whole drama, Paramount Skydance, led by David Ellison.
But backed by the real money, his father, Larry Ellison, of Oracle fame. We're talking a personal fortune around $383 billion. That kind of money can absorb WBD's debt without blinking.
Their offer is reportedly very strong, somewhere in the $22, $24 per share range, and this is key, mostly cash. For a company drowning in debt like WBD, cash is king. Way better than complex stock swaps.
And their goal isn't just to grab a piece, it's consolidation.
Massive consolidation. If this deal goes through, you're looking at a new global entertainment giant. Combining Paramount, Skydance, and WBD, they'd control maybe a third of global film production, pushing towards 200 million streaming subs between Max and Paramount plus Sun. It's a landscape-altering move.
Now, we do have to touch on the political dimension the sources mentioned. Larry Ellison is known for his conservative leanings, and David Ellison apparently made moves like appointing a conservative ombudsman for the potential new structure. Some people worry about media independence.
True. But the source material draws an interesting potential link to the Snyderverse here. It suggests this political leaning might, strategically, be good news for restoring the Snyderverse.
How so?
The argument is that the Snyderverse's tone, darker, more mythic, arguably less overtly focused on contemporary social commentary than some other franchises, resonates strongly with certain demographics, including conservatives, who might feel underserved by Hollywood currently.
So a conservative-leaning owner might see a dedicated paying audience there and be more willing to greenlight content for them.
That's the speculation presented. It frames the Snyderverse fan base not just as fans, but as a specific, potentially valuable market segment for an owner with that perspective.
Okay, interesting angle. Then there's the other player, the wild card, Netflix.
The Netflix variable. Yeah, CEO Ted Sarandos is apparently involved. But their motivation seems different. It's less about owning everything and more about preventing Ellison from creating that massive, consolidated competitor. They don't want Skydance, Paramount, WBD cherry-picking all the best streaming and studio assets.
So Netflix's approach would be different. They wouldn't buy the whole thing.
Probably not. The sources suggest Netflix would likely target just the Warner Bros. Studio and the streaming operations, the parts they understand and value. They'd want to avoid those legacy cable networks and, crucially, most of that massive $35 billion debt load that Skydance seems willing to take on.
Okay, so why is the Netflix possibility exciting for DC fans, specifically Snyderverse fans?
Well, think about Netflix. Global reach. Check. History of funding big budget, sometimes niche projects, check. An algorithm that can find and serve specific audiences, double check.
They could make something like a Snyderverse revival work financially without needing it to be a 4-quadrant blockbuster every time.
Exactly. They have that model. Plus, they already work with Snyder Army of the Dead, Rebel Moon. They know him, he knows them. Their platform could, theoretically, support a multi-season Justice League continuation aimed squarely at those millions of loyal fans worldwide. They paid $1.5 billion for South Park rights. They spent huge on guaranteed engagement.
Wow. So the timing is just brutal for WBD, but maybe perfect for these outside players.
Yeah.
The debt, DC's recent kind of mixed results at the box office, it creates this window.
It really does. Zaslav basically signaling he's willing to sell, maybe even in pieces, shows the current path isn't working long-term. Trying to force one unified vision while carrying that debt anchor, it's proving unsustainable.
This is a lot to take in, folks. We know it's dense, but it's crucial for understanding what might happen next. If you're finding this valuable, again, we're the other opinion. Hit like, subscribe, share it around. We need your support to keep doing these deep dives.
We'll be right back to connect all these corporate dots directly to the fans and the chance, however slim, of the Snyderverse actually coming back.
Okay, let's bring it all together. How does this corporate dogfight over debt and streaming actually create an opportunity to bring back a canceled cinematic universe?
It boils down to one thing. Fan power becoming measurable, bankable capital.
You mean the precedent set by #Release the Snyder Cut?
Precisely. That movement was unlike anything Hollywood had really seen before on that scale. Fans didn't just tweet angrily. They organized globally. They raised huge amounts for charity in Snyder's name, over $500,000. They bought billboards. They kept up relentless coordinated pressure for 4 years.
It worked. They got the Snyder Cut released on HBO Max in 2021.
And its release proved two things to the industry and, crucially, to potential acquirers like Skydance or Netflix. One, intense fan demand can actually force a studio's hand. Two, catering to that specific demand can drive real business results, like boosting streaming subscriptions.
So the current #Restore the Snyderverse movement is basically using that playbook again, but aiming it at this moment of corporate vulnerability.
Exactly. They're not just saying, we want more movies. They're making a business case for revival targeted at whoever might end up owning these assets.
And the core of that business case is the fan base itself is a guaranteed market.
Yes. It's not a hypothetical audience you hope will show up. It's a known quantity. A global, dedicated group that has already proven repeatedly that they will spend money, subscribe to services, and mobilize to support this specific vision.
That global aspect is important too, right? Snyder's visual style
Performs very well internationally, according to the analysis. In markets where maybe dialogue is less key than spectacle, strong emotion, striking visuals, the Snyder aesthetic travels well. That broadens the business case beyond just the U.S. market.
which loops back to the Netflix possibility again.
Perfectly. Netflix's whole model thrives on global niche audiences. Their algorithm can find the Snyder fans in Brazil, in India, in Germany, wherever, and market directly to them. They don't need a Super Bowl ad to reach everyone.
So they could potentially make a Snyderverse continuation financially viable just by super serving that dedicated global base.
That's the potential. Make it profitable by maximizing the return from that specific reliable group. For a potential new owner of WBD, desperate for some guaranteed wins and steady revenue streams to offset that debt, that guaranteed fan base starts to look like a pretty valuable strategic asset. Less risky, maybe, than launching brand new, untested franchises.
Okay, but what about the creative conflict? You'd have Snyder's world potentially existing alongside James Gunn's new DCU. How does that work?
Enter the multiverse. Snyder has talked openly about his detailed plans. The Justice League sequels, maybe spin-offs.
And the multiverse concept is already a proven success Audiences get it now.
Right. So, for a new owner, the multiverse offers a perfect narrative excuse. You can use it to explain cast changes like, okay, Henry Cavill isn't Gunn's Superman, but maybe he exists in the Snyderverse timeline. It allows for coexistence.
So the new owner wouldn't necessarily have to choose between Snyder and Gunn. They could, theoretically, have both running in parallel.
That's the ultimate strategic question they face. Do you try to unify or do you embrace the multiverse and cater to two distinct audiences? You could have the dark, heavier Snyderverse for that dedicated niche, and the brighter, more traditional Gunn DCU aiming for the broader mass market. Two different flavors, two potentially loyal audiences.
That would be unprecedented, wouldn't it? Reviving a whole universe after it was officially declared over.
Completely unprecedented in Hollywood on that scale. But the market is changing. Streaming demands content, and unique content with a built-in, passionate audience is incredibly valuable right now. The Snyderverse is that.
So, whether it's Ellison's Skydance or Sarando's Netflix, who potentially takes over WBD, they inherit this situation.
Yeah.
Valuable assets, huge debt, and a need for reliable hits.
Which means they might just be forced to listen to the audience that guarantees engagement, the audience whose loyalty was forged in the specific creative fires of Man of Steel, its realism, its spectacle, its controversial choices.
Wow, okay, so wrapping this up, it's been a real deep dive, hasn't it?
Absolutely. We've traced how Man of Steel's specific creative choices, Zod's tragic nature, Zimmer's unique score, the controversial realism built this incredibly durable foundation of fan loyalty.
And how that loyalty has now, remarkably, become potential leverage, actual capital, in this massive corporate acquisition war playing out between Skydance and Netflix over WBD's future.
It's pretty stunning proof that fan passion, when organized and sustained, can actually influence corporate strategy at the highest levels, even years after the fact. The artistic debates from 2013 are fiscally relevant in 2025.
Which leads us to that final provocative thought for you, our listeners, to chew on.
If the Snyderverse is somehow restored, maybe as streaming series, maybe even films, what happens then? Does it dilute Gunn's new DCU? Or could having two radically different, successful Superman universes coexist? The dark, heavy, moss-derived world and the bright, classic Superman 2025 world.
Could that actually prove that the ultimate success isn't necessarily about pleasing everyone, but about finding and deeply satisfying a dedicated, loyal audience, whatever its size?
Something to think about while we wait to see who writes the next chapter for DC.
Definitely something to mull over. Okay, that's it for this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us on The Other Opinion. Please, before you go, hit that like button.
And comment below. We genuinely want your other opinions on all this. Did most get it right? Is restoration possible? Let us know.
And subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. Sharing this episode with friends also helps us out a ton.
And just a necessary note. Please remember this was an AI podcast aimed at providing information, and some of that information might be wrong or speculative based on the sources.
Absolutely. Thanks again for listening. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.